It's time for Two Guys and a Girlie.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Two Guys and a Girlie. Live stream happening each Sunday at 2:30 with myself, Denise, aka Girlie, and it appears from his library is one of the guys, Clark, and from his studio, Nick. How's it going, guys?
Excellent.
Good? Everybody good? All right.
Yep.
All right. So what are we going to talk about this week?
I gotta check my speaker here. 1 second here.
Yep.
The speaker before we came on made this weird noise. It sounded like clapping. So I just wanted to check. Obviously, there was a transmission error.
Oh, sure,
we can raise that as a topic if we brush up against anything.
Who says we can't clap for ourselves? Wasn't that a thing like for a while on TV? It was really weird. Why would you clap for yourself?
I'm picturing where that would happen, not counting Peter Pan. Well, yeah, I would imagine it was the days before live audience stuff, and they were trying to encourage the illusion that it was a sort of a live communal thing, and we're all listen to this kind of stuff. But if you insist.
All right. Thank you, Clark. Thank you.
Happening? What are we in?
If I knew you would spend 3 minutes discussing about this, I would do it more often. Anyway,
right.
So
what kind of guitar is that this week, Nick? What kind of this week?
That's the most cheap guitar you can buy, but that's one in the world now because I have added sculptures on it. And so it's one of a kind. It's just a no-name Les Paul like guitar. I have upgraded the pickups with Seymour Duncan. But
and did you name her? Does she have a name?
Yes.
No, that's a
yes. All my guitars have names.
I have read a lot of musicians, famous musicians, name their instruments.
The other one, the Gretsch, is called Lydia.
Okay.
It's one of the muses.
All right.
And this one, she had a name from a child with autism. Was working and loved the guitar, and she named it Night Storm. But okay. I still haven't decided what the name would be. It's Empyrean. Sorry, the name I have given is after the sculpture. It's Empyrean, the dragon that sets fire on himself. That's how I feel every time I jam with the guitar. I'm just feeling fired up. So,
all right.
Let's go into it. Let's discuss from last week then.
Yeah, let's do.
So,
what did we talk about last week, Denise?
Well,
I'm sorry. I apologize genuinely on a meta chauvinistic level. I would have, even though you're the intro and you're the host, Tina. The idea that you would be the one to keep the minutes is a failing of mine to project that kind of thing. So, hey, Nick, what did we do last week?
We're going to continue discussing about, first of all, our inner critic, why, as we said, we deem our writing sucks most of the time, and we are afraid to press the publish button. We were discussing, said we are going to discuss this tonight, this afternoon. When do we stop polishing when enough is enough? Another subject we arose, it's when do we realize that connects that we have become better writers? And as a matter of fact, Nancy wrote a post some days ago concerning that. And it attracted to her amazement a huge interest. And she was talking about that. So, in general, that's what we were saying.
You have her email? Why don't you send her a link?
Yep, I will do. So more or less, guys, if you want to say hi at the comments or anything, as you know, we are here to discuss with you. Okay, guys or girls, I don't know. I just say
Yep.
that figuratively.
This is
And
Definitely.
just one small observation: every time you hear me or anyone of the three of us reading aloud the comments we are posting on screen, it's only we are doing that in to enable people that only are able to listen to the live stream and cannot see it, so they can participate in the ongoing discussion. That's why you listen to me or Clark or Denise read aloud the comments we post on screen. Okay, so let's
Right.
get into it.
All
Which
right.
is a segue. That's a segue into your audiobook thing, right?
Yeah.
No. I mean, you reading, think about it. You reading somebody's comments is metafiction if ever I saw one.
That's a good subject, but since we have open threads from the previous episode, can we start from these threads?
No, I'm
Because if
still
we get
interested in what she looked like, though. And this
I don't
is
know.
a compliment to whoever's
Chris,
still.
yes, Chris knows. Maybe if Chris is here, she can write something about it.
Oh,
And
no,
let's what no. No,
no,
what?
it's not. The question had more to do with the concept of audiobooks. To briefly qualify, I don't believe I've ever done read an audiobook or heard an audiobook. There you go. So it's a different experience to hear an audiobook versus reading an audiobook. And any reader type people would identify with the idea that half the fun is casting for a story in our heads.
Yes.
But the idea of a voice, it's another character, isn't it? Denise? What do you think?
So reading versus the audio, the first thing that came to mind, and I was thinking about this last week, was audiobooks are very convenient. Obviously, they can be used anywhere. You know, a lot of people listen while they're running, while they exercise, while they're driving a long trip. I don't know that I would want to be listening to an audiobook while driving 85 down the interstate, only because reading a book, most people, and I've seen people read books running on a treadmill, which would be vomiting all over. But that aside, most people reading books were stationary. We're sitting in a comfortable chair, maybe laying on the bed. We're in one place in a totality of the words and the place, and totally.
Your reader would be doing this.
What?
You're in the chair, and the reader voice would be stroking your temple.
Yes, or poking me in the shoulder, or scaring me to death. Absolutely, and I would say all three of us and a whole bunch of people watching and listening have had that same experience too, where you are totally caught up. Stop. So I'll quickly get to my point, which is with audiobooks, it is a different experience, Clark, in that your focus is not the same. We're attentive in a different way when we listen. And if we are listening while we're cooking, maybe we have kids and kids come running in, there's that interruption. You have potential for interruption in the flow of that story and how you are experiencing it. So
might I suggest that you've actually got 4 layers then, because you've got the story, and then you've got the reading, the act of reading, and then you've got somebody reading it to you, and you've got yourself doing something else. What the hell?
Yeah.
So I throw that in.
Yeah, I'm not. I heard a bit of an audio book once. For me, it's always the voice. You know, when you read a book, we create the voice. We create everything. We personalize a book that we read, which we can also do if we listen. But what about if the narrator's voice, the narrator then is using their inflection and their perception, interpretation of the story, say to emphasize certain words?
And
If it's not the author speaking it, then it's being given us. It's another. It's not
right there. Not to quibble, but holy shit! If the author's got a narrator and the book has a reader, it's a freaking crowd. How many layers do you know? And I like narrators, by the way, in movies. No, not to get off the reading audiobook kind of discussion, but who doesn't like a narrator in a movie?
True. And so I would put a question to anyone listening today. Just that. How does it fit? The narrator? Yeah, you can enjoy that, but what happens if you have a sense of the story? You read the cover of the whatever comes in, and you're like, oh yeah, you get excited about the story, and then you hit on, and you don't like the voice. Then then what?
Hell.
Put an asterisk there because that opens up a whole new subject about in many countries. In many countries, there are. Hi, Michael.
Good evening.
Hi, Michael. Good to have you here.
Michael.
Hey, Tom.
Sup?
Oh, Tom, interesting that you listen to the reader's voice more than the story. What are you saying? Explain, clarify.
And I'll add, do you cast the reader in the story, or is it just some invisible man or woman behind you?
Yeah, does that make a difference? Does that make a difference, a male or female narrator?
I still want to know what Nick's reader, I should make that distinction myself since I brought it up, your reader, what she look like.
It's not my reader. I don't know. It's
makes all the difference in the world.
I know.
Here we are, 5,000 years of technology and human suffering to get to the point where we can have a live conversation. You can't back away from it, Nick. You got to tell us.
I won't back away. I will answer to you in the most sincere way I can. So let me gather my thoughts first, and I will address you.
All right, and
your question on.
In the meantime, we'll be waiting for Tom's response.
Or Tom's, yes. So first of all,
being a merciful Clark, I will say my only direct experience, I had some minor surgery done on my face, the Mohs surgery, and the surgeon was listening to. You don't mind if I listen to this audiobook, do you?
The voice seems to take me away from the story. I think I prefer hearing my own inner voice. So you were talking about the reader's voice, Tom, our inner voice in our head in your previous comment. So that's what you were referring to as far as reader's voice.
Okay. I identify with that. That's valid. Yeah. That's valid.
So my take. Sorry. No, please, yes.
Oh, I just wanted to hear surgery, and you don't mind if I.
Claro.
Is there something coming there that
instead of music, having an audiobook playing during your surgery?
What kind of book was he playing?
Oh, something.
That's easy. Stephen King's Christine.
No, it was a story of Bin Laden back in the day. This is, I guess, in the 2000s.
You mean this actually happened? It wasn't just a metaphor
I don't make anything
of yours?
This is a true statement.
And he was the Hunt for Bin Laden he was listening to.
Yeah.
Wow, well, he did surgery on your face, man.
Yeah.
Oh.
And Mohs surgery, which is like the most complex of surgeries that you're awake for, and the elevated table, and it's sort of like, oh shoot, what was that in the first Dunes movie version? What was the guy, the disease gatherer collector
Don't remember.
guy sticking needles in your face and like multiple times. So when you're in that situation, you find stuff interesting that you might not otherwise.
Wow,
Okay,
wow.
so Tom agrees with Clark. Okay, here. All right. Let me.
That inner
I'll
voice,
read.
that's interesting. That's yep. There she is.
So,
On track. All right.
as
All right. So Tom and I agree. You guys, gonna defend your position that it's
what? Sorry.
Oh yeah, Nick.
Stumble upon. Yeah.
description. Yeah,
You
we're still
still
waiting
love me
for Nick's
about that,
description.
Okay.
What was the book that she?
No,
that was
you won't get that was the latest from Chris' book. The one I heard.
Chris's book.
Not-
Okay. All right.
Yes, not all of it, but I heard snippets. I have the book as a Kindle, but I didn't listen all the book as audiobook. She has published parts of the audiobook in her posts. That's how I listened to that. And explaining the whole procedure, how she ended up collaborating with that agents that they are creating audiobooks. So essentially, I am in no disagreement with what you're saying. Again, I'm going to bear with me. I'm going to intersect some physiology in it. We have already discussed about the physiology of our brain, and what you're saying refers exactly to that. The layers you talked about, Clark, and what you talked about, Denise, about doing one thing that you have to concentrate, whether it's driving or not something as that requires as much attention. Still, there are things happening distractions, okay, that will take your mind. And so I don't think I told you the exact studies I'm going to tell you now, but there are multiple studies now that have shown that our brain decides how much of the actual data of what is happening relate to our conscious mind. Which means that in the situations you are describing, listening to the audiobook, since we are multitasking in a way, our brain will only take parts of what is happening and will fill in the blanks. That doesn't mean it will fill in the sentences as that the narrator says. As far as our experience of what is happening, I will tell you in other words. When we listen to music, they had two study groups. One group was listening to a full lit room, reading a book and listening to several songs. The same people then they were moved into a low lit room with nothing else to do but to listen to the exact same songs. Every one of them found differences in the same songs, nuances, instruments, lines of melodies they didn't listen and hear in the first episode. And that's only one study. We have functioning MRI that shows that our brain, when we're doing other things, does not give all its attention to listening to music as we are driving. But when we actually focus on listening to music, then we get the complete experience. The same is with reading. What we are saying. When you're sitting with the book, you are having uninterrupted full attention at the experience of holding the book and reading it.
So what you're saying, Nick, then to those people who enjoy those audiobooks is they're not getting the full experience of the book because they're listening
Use-
and not
apart from the ones, as I've said in the previous episode, that have no eyesight. People who have limited or are legally blind, they don't have any other stimuli at the moment of listening to the audiobook. So then their complete brain energy is towards listening to the book, and that's why I said,
yes, and a different
apart from that very strict occasion, yes, for them is as close as it gets to reading, and with using the braille method. Okay. Other than that, if you have eyesight, then you're usually focusing or scanning for something else, and then you're not taking the full advantage. And then the second layer is the tactile thing we were talking about, Nancy, the experience of holding a book, smelling the book,
tactile,
yes, seeing the way the pages are arranged, the fonts on the page. I mean, it's like with hi-fis. Okay, you find little nuances. Oh, this needle of the record player, it's made in Japan from a rare diamond and whatever. You go deeper and deeper, but it's an experience you're not having with an audiobook.
No, and a unique experience to each person. Absolutely. Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. So essentially what we're saying is it's a different experience than reading a book. Although one might, at least for us, 4 or 5 we are discussing now.
I am going to go out. I will tell you right now, I'm going to go to the library this week and get an audiobook.
Which one?
I'll have to make a note to myself. I'm making a note.
Yep.
Which one?
I don't know. It's been so long.
So
I've gone and read an actual book. My God. I guess it depends on what mood I'm in at the time, whether, okay. Here's what gets me. Libraries. The library I go to, I hadn't been in a while, during the whole COVID thing. They reduced their number of books. And I'm totally disgusted because it's physically evident in the library. And then when I go looking for titles, like this was a long time ago. I know Clark, the Lathe of Heaven, Ursula Le Guin there. There's like 1 or 2.
Here's your audiobook.
What?
Would you do the audiobook of that one?
Okay, possibly, but physical, the books. And so, it's funny, I didn't look to compare on there. I didn't notice the audiobooks, whether they had increased or decreased. But the physical books, it's like, man, what the hell? Because there were other titles, some science fiction guys that I was looking for. And
well, the same story, same situation with record stores, no?
It's true, unless you find a really good used record store. Then
well, right there, the first qualifier what you're hinting at in your hint, which is libraries have lesser books traditionally, and record stores are mostly used. Is there any such a thing?
No, less number physically. There are fewer books.
Right, and in record stores, there are less record stores and records within them.
True.
Denise, do you think it would be interesting as an experiment, since you are going to go at the Western Front of audiobooks and report back? Do you think it has any merit in listening as an audiobook, a book you have already read?
I don't know that I'd want to chance that. I don't know whether I want to do that.
Like seeing a bad movie version of a story. that you like?
It, it could be, or yeah,
But-
a bad remake, a current remake of an older movie where you
Yes.
say, well, we didn't need a remake. Why did you remake it? And it's really
Exactly.
stupid.
Uh,
But no. I think I should get something new, and I'm not promising that I'll listen to the whole thing.
I'm complimenting your courage in doing so. The only reason I offered that option was, in scientific research, the most easy way and the quickest way to go towards any validity of your theorem is to disprove it, to find ways that the holes in it. So
True.
if you listen to as an audiobook a book you have already read, and you are immediately, after half an hour, oh, I can start it, then you're saving the rest 3 hours you would spend listening to an audiobook you haven't read before as a book, and finally going to the same conclusion.
But now that you're talking, if I listen to an audiobook of one, say it was a favorite that I've read more than once,
Castaneda.
I will. There's a possibility.
Yeah.
I'm listening to the narrator inflect a character with certain something.
Yes.
Oh, that would be funny. Like, no. They're not like that. They wouldn't. No, they're not like that.
What we're describing,
they're not that nasty. Oh, they're not sarcastic, and they're not being sarcastic. Why did they read that line with a hint of sarcasm?
Exactly.
No.
How
we take possession of characters sometimes in our favorite books.
It's what Tom said, the inner reader's voice. And it's not only a voice, it's what Clark said, it's a complete person. The word escapes me. How do we call when in some countries they do voiceover at movies? They're not using the original actors' voices. What's the term?
Dubbing.
Eh?
Dubbing.
Okay. In France, in Brazil,
right.
So I had a patient once from Brazil, and it was our last session, and before she was flying back to the States, she was a pianist, she was staying there. I had her in my home for a few hours, so she won't stay at the airport all the time. And anyway, I said, I had to go back to my practice. Do you want me to play a movie for you? So I put Scent of a Woman with Al Pacino. And half an hour later, she was in tears. And I thought something was wrong. And I said, what's wrong? Are you okay? She said, I have watched that movie so many times. And that's the first time I'm listening to Al Pacino's voice. Because all the time they are dubbed with Brazilian actors speaking Brazilian. And that was the first time she would hear Al Pacino voice in a movie.
Wow.
So I think that resembles to what we are saying. We already have a fictional character in our minds when we're reading our book. And to have that take a different form, it's a bet. That's, I don't know what are the chances to be better than the one, or if we want to take that bet at all. That's what we are saying. But have in mind that we have already read that book. So for someone who is not inclined to read a book at all, because that's the way they are selling this thing out, that's why libraries and bookstores are closing one after the other. We'll see. Tom says, I think another comparison of differences is listening to radio play to watching a TV or a stage show.
Oh, Tom, you read my mind. I was just thinking, but I was listening to you, Nick. The idea of listening to radio programs. There's a National Public Radio. I haven't done it in a while, but I'd catch it at the right hour where they would have the old timey radio shows, and I'd be driving. and it would be kind of fun to listen to those. But anyway, I'm sorry. Back to Tom's.
No,
Yeah.
yes, we are all in agreement, I think, as far as
So I don't think any of us are old enough, Clark, to have been around when that was regular.
No.
The pre-TV days.
No, I don't quite get back that far.
Nope, I didn't think so.
I've heard them on usually college stations. They're really stupid when you listen to them, but that's kind of interesting when you think about it, because the idea of listening to, say, a radio broadcast play or whatever, and beyond it being stupid is the fun of imagining what the world was to allow people to listen to it and not think it's stupid. That didn't make sense. But
no, it didn't. Rephrase.
Well, it made sense to them. It was perfect for them. And they listened to those things because they didn't have television. They didn't have the visual elements. So they were listening. And even though from any of our level of writing hood, really goofy stuff when you listen to it. But there must have been some shorthand going in, something that we're not chronoculturally attuned to. Because they do that stuff and you watch any entertainment that's sufficiently removed in time and culture. It's jilted, it's fun, it's incomplete, it's a lot of weird things, but that's kind of cool when you think about, all right, so where's the missing channels that the audience it was intended for? They're on a different, they're perceiving it, relating to it, as we like to say, differently than we are capable of. Yeah. That's where you see that in the old 30s and 40s, the dialogue intensive movies, which makes me such a fan of some of the 90s independent guys, Kevin Smith and Linkletter, is that they went back to that whole idea of intense dialogue as opposed to action and bombs going off. But any of those things that you look back in time, that you see it as old-fashioned is only half the fun. The other half of the fun is to see it as enrapturing, where you're only a different person in a different reality, aka back in time, back in culture.
And remember what you said a couple of episodes ago about how the stance with motorcycles evolved during the years. You were seeing stance with motorcycles 20 years ago, and then you see the stance they're doing now, and it's on a completely it's an alien level, and in all kinds of stuff, in skiing, in ice skating, in whatever. So it's this
that's a good point, Nick. And I was thinking more the inferred cultural elements of communication / entertainment, but you're right about the skiers. You watch the old 1960s Wide World of Sports where the Polish
you brought that up,
and then you see people flipping over in the air, cooking a light meal, reading a book, and then landing. And they did something that they didn't tell us about. And I think that's kind of a cool potential in how flexible reality really is, because you would know better than the rest of us that physiologically and nervistically we haven't changed that much, that you can do the kind of things that you can do with motorcycles and or skis and stuff, but they do, or at least they tell us they do.
Exactly.
And why did they wear hats in the 1920s? You look at those newsreels, everybody wore a straw hat. What the hell? Go ahead. You can look it up. It's a fact. It's not just my opinion.
But we can agree next episode, all three of us will wear hats for one episode.
Well, we have a saying about that in the doctrine. I won't go down that road.
For our down heads.
Differences. So Tom and I are right again.
Okay.
Of course.
No, I
No.
like that. I use that kind of thing that he does, which is even at my level of writing, an awful lot of the time I can come up with something more entertaining to me and a handful of people than what I'll turn on TV randomly. And you get to be everything. You're the actor, you're the director, you're the producer, all of that stuff.
Yep.
And so for next week, maybe the topic we could stray into, well, if what we have said is true, which is always going to be the case, when it comes to writing, is there a difference between or talking into a microphone and dictating a story?
Can you repeat the first part of your question? Is there a difference between that was lost?
Yep, typing a story as we all do.
Typing. Yeah, okay.
Versus dictating.
Yeah.
I have only tried once and I stopped. But for another episode.
It's difficult. Yeah, we'll talk about that next week for sure.
Let's get into then why we think when we are writing a story. Sorry?
Well, I just want to jump over to Tom's before we leave the topic. I think another comparison of differences is listening to a radio play. Oh, that's the old thing. Sorry, Tom.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was reading an old comment.
Yeah.
You ought to just get a link here, dude, and then you can be on the screen, and then we won't have to do this live.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Got room right over there. Got room right over there.
Anytime, Tom. Just say the word, and we hook you up.
And we have a button. Nick has a button on his console that when the laughter starts, that holy shit, who's that? He can mute it. You won't even feel a thing. Really.
Yes.
Are we going to?
You don't call me the gatekeeper for nothing, Clark.
See.
So let's get into it. Why do we think so often that what we are writing sucks? And our inner critic is so harsh on our creations. Let's talk about writing because that's what we are now. But that applies to all kinds of creations a human delves into. Let's
So
go
take
into
the
that.
lead on that, Nick, because that is a valid question we have asked multiple times. But yep, and we always come back to it. Some of us.
Let me start. I do believe it's a huge topic for all creators, for anyone who has created anything in his life, and he faces that quote unquote demon inside his head. That what are you doing? You're wasting your time. It's worthless. It's wasting everyone's time. Go do something else, whatever. And again, I will refer to a recent post by Nancy that she wrote about Scott Fitzgerald, that when he wrote The Great Gatsby, it sell by the time Fitzgerald died in 1940, I think, less than 20,000 copies. So it was considered a big failure. And he died believing that The Great Gatsby it was a failure. Now, you know, because you went to school in the United States, that The Great Gatsby is in the curriculum, yes? When you do literature, you are studying The Great Gatsby, right?
I never read it.
Really?
Yep.
But it's considered a classic now, no?
That I understand, yes.
Yes. So, you see, it's not something that plagues only the nobodies like me. Who are you to create a sculpture or write a story or anything? It's something that everyone faces. And
so then the challenge is to persist in spite of those feelings. Just persist. Certainly with writers who that persistence, yeah. Want to say
don't quit.
Well, no.
Clark?
Yes. There's a bunch of stuff there, right? Inner critics and the voices that we probably all have, that hold us back, hold us on the tried and true path. Not even take that true back, the tried path. But then there's the whole topic of creativity. What the hell is that? And why should you? And why do people have that kind of enjoyment of creativity? And then the writing, which, I'll say for the writing thing, I only got into writing when I got online. And I only got online with the doctrine for whatever reasons they were. But and I only started caring about writing when more of my friends were good at writing, and I figured I had to up my game, which is interesting because none of them they're all kinds of new, but some people are just better at some things than others. Some people have better whatevers. So there's never a sense from them about whether I was writing good or not. But I knew that, hell, okay, I got to get better at it, because then I'm sort of keeping pace with my newly acquired virtual peer group. And then the fiction stuff only happened after, well, I'd say halfway through the tenure now. And same reasons, those six-sentence story, TTOT, were all forms of fiction. And that added the element to it, because I can write about and talk about the doctrine all freaking day long and enjoy it. And some percentage of people will enjoy it too. But the fiction writing is a different thing, because now we're getting into the only, what I suspect is the only practical approach to dampening one's inner critic, which is to have a peer group that you can identify with. Identify is big in the doctrine, but the idea is, okay, I hear from Seer that, no, he wouldn't say that. Let's say, who else could I say? Tom, since his name's on the board. Oh man, that sucked. I got to do another one. And see, the perfect timing. Having a peer group to offset it. And that's where identification comes in. I know how it feels to run into, holy shit, what a piece of garbage. I'm so bad, I should just melt my keyboard. I know how that feels, and everybody else does. So then if everybody else does, then the single biggest, if we're going to talk about inner critics, and I'll stop, single biggest power of our inner critic is that, left to its own devices, it's the only voice in our head. It's the only thing between us and the world as we imagine it. And that's all powerful, because what are you going to do? It's right. You and it's going to tell you what you already know. You suck. The only defense, only alternate to that is to find other people with other inner critics, and all of a sudden the power is right there, cut in half. Oh, wait a minute. I thought you were the only voice in my head. I thought you were the only arbiter of my writing to my inner critic. No, I can see that Nick and Tom and Denise and all the other people in Miss Bonneville feel the same way. So that must answer the question, right?
So
my inner critic says I've been going on too long, so I better stop talking.
What do you think our inner critics standards are that it uses to end up in the critic it does? I mean, is it the literature we have acquainted ourselves with?
No, it comes down to basically you suck. And you should be living an uncomfortable life. That's all. That's all it needs.
Yes, it needs. But when you're trying to get it, for one, Tom said that he's just having the inner voices of his characters, and he's just let them loose and writes about them, and that's a fun way of dealing with the inner doubt. I think another mistake as far as writing goes and I am the last one who should talk about writing, but is that we make the mistake to compare our stories, our novels, our whatever, our fictions, with finished works of the art of writing. We have in our heads the books in our libraries that we have read. They are there. They are part of us, whether we want to admit it or not. And whether we want to admit it or not, we are comparing, not consciously always, what we are writing with finished creations, which means that they're not to be compared with, because one is a draft of a story or a story in progress, and the book, when we buy it or take it from the library, is a finished product, which means apart from the writer, there are editors, there are publishers, there are opinion, whatever they call them, and they all have applied layers of lacquer on top of the initial draft of the writer. And so we are destined to lose if we take that pathway towards comparing. Oh, my story has nothing. Look at what Dan Brown wrote, or Stephen King, or whatever. From a book, from a finished book, I mean. It's a mechanic that holds no water because they are not comparable. We are not comparing manuscripts. Ours is a manuscript. The finished book we buy is not a manuscript alone. It has heavy editing. It has been cared for before it ended up as a book on a bookshelf in a bookstore. So I think if we realize that, we can mute a big part of that inner voice, apart from what Clark says, that I agree completely.
Yeah,
You were saying, Denise?
Garage band writing.
Say what?
Like garage band writing. I lifted that from the progenitor Roger, I think. He came up with a term like that, but the idea of, I like the idea of the people I'm around have a certain percentage of people way better than I am, and some people who aren't, and mostly in the middle, old bell curve. And I like that because there isn't that sense of how good is yours compared to. There is that sense of knowing that you're not that far from either extreme.
No, not that sense of isolation of you're the only one that sucks. Not that I'm implying the other people suck, but within that whole, it's funny. I was thinking of that, and especially the 6, and because every time you click on a thumbnail, okay, you have a short story. And people writing different stories, different styles, and different levels, Clark, as you're saying, of expertise or just that style. And all of it kind of goes to, wow, that was really good. And you're like, wow, or that was interesting how they do that. And sometimes, it's that, oh man, but mine, and you get into that comparative thing, and I'm much better, like, just okay, whatever. It's just, the more I read, the more I read 6s, which I'm quite behind, but I do read them. I don't know. It all goes to that. That goes almost as much to making me better than the physical writing. Yes, physical writing comes first in anything. The practice makes perfect kind of thing. But reading, as everyone knows, that obviously expands our mind. exposing us to different styles to just you take it all in. So on a smaller scale with a 6, that does it for me. And I'm rambling now, so please, someone.
What you're, as you were not rambling now. Hey Ford. Own voice and style is the way to go once you find it, and being confident to use and keep it. Working in a group of writers like Six and the Stories is invaluable for a bit of validation.
Absolutely. I totally agree, Ford. Totally.
And Frank says, if it weren't for my inner critic, I wouldn't make any revisions.
Oh, okay.
Yay.
Put an asteroid next to that
That's-
one. Next week, I don't have enough time to get the rant going. But
No.
thanks, Frank.
Let's use, Frank, your comment here and use it as the beginning of the discussion of our next episode, and go heavy on editing.
And
Why
then,
wait it? How much? When enough is enough, and everything else.
yeah, and if
Yes.
Denise would get her steno pad out, Denise, make a note too of. Do we have anybody who's not from Wycomia here? What Tom was saying about the working out the inner problems. I was making a comment to, I think it was Liz this weekend, about mining my bio for emotional content, which I will find next week an interesting topic on a couple of different levels, which is to say me personally as a Clark writing, and the idea of how much, and I totally get the working out your issues, as Tom is saying, but also going back there for not so much the adventures as much as the emotional content in the past. And so when I look at my own characters, some are clearly just first person, others are just favorite. Everybody here is like Lou, just shows up when you get a character like that. It's like, all right, go ahead, take the keyboard. I don't care. And so that's an interesting topic of our relationship to our characters.
Yes.
And I think I was saying it to Tom on his walk on today about the idea of here we have this virtual place, cafe, which is cool, and then we all have personas, but now we're starting to invite, or they're busting in anyway, our characters. 3 levels of imaginary. It's kind of fun.
Excellent. And Frank, just to make a thing clear, when we were talking about the inner critic, of course we are going to discuss to what you are referring, but we are talking about more in general, let's say, before we hit the publish button, after we have finished whatever editing we have decided to do, that, oh man, this sucks, I don't want to publish it, or I won't go forth with my manuscript to make it into a published book, and so on and so forth. But we will use your comment and go heavy on editing and what that entails next episode for sure. So Denise, what, as you were talking, in my mind came the pictures, photos of the artists I like Rodin or Jackson Pollock, in their workshops. And I was thinking, could they have created the works of art they did if they weren't surrounded with the environment they have created for themselves in their workshop? In the same way you were describing that the habitat of the Sixth and Story community creates an environment that when we participate in it, we exchange,
Yes,
we give, we take,
yeah.
and that in result helps us in an unconscious maybe way to create more effortlessly or more focused.
It encourages the writing. For me, it encourages me to write. I guess kind of that group collective, the community, because I definitely see it as a community that's way bigger than the numbers that show up, because I know there are people, and Clark, you remember from way back, all the different people that would just pop in and do a 6 here, do a 6 there. Like you, Ford. We haven't seen you in a while. But I know everyone's there, and we'll have a story at some point. Kind of keeps me going when I'm writing, but I'm coming in at the end versus but a couple of weeks ago I had a story ready and I'm going. It's just that they keep going. Just keep going, because you're around people that love to write, and I do. It just, I don't know.
And so he wrote in his comment, it's invaluable for a bit of validation. But I'm thinking, would we prefer our stories to be, let's say in other blog hops, they have a secret anonymous vote, and every participant votes for the best story each week. You don't know who voted what, but at the end you see, let's say Clark's story came first with 5 votes. Nick's last with 1 or none. Is this more beneficial?
What, to vote?
Yes, at the end of each week,
No.
the best story than what we are having. Let's discuss that.
No, I don't think so, because it's not about voting who's best. How could you? No, it's just. I see it as strictly the exercise of 6s as engagement with other writers, having fun. I mean, you're supposed to have fun writing, and sometimes I do. Sometimes I really do. When I don't is only on me for not having spent as much time as I should, because I know, like, I have an idea. So this past 6, I had the idea back when Clark, I think it was 2 weeks ago, your post, your 6, and just time, circumstance, whatever. It wasn't quite what I initially was setting out to write. I mean, the first part, definitely that came, but a little bit different tone. But the whole voting thing, I'm in that context, I don't know. No.
Clark, you agree?
With Denise, no, I think what I'm gathering the idea of, and I've seen other sites that do that, that's kind of like the true meaning of the apple in the myth of the Garden of Eden. I'll leave it at that. That's really what I meant. Compliments, Denise, too, on your 6, because it was a good, not to get technical, but it was a good anchoring and then building the story off of that, setting the, not just, hey, there's the long bar down the right-hand wall, but the idea of another character in the scene and then going off on the other thing. Nicely done.
Thank you.
And Ford saying that he votes no to voting, and I completely agree. As you said, it's the interaction between us, and it's happening in one level when we read each other's stories, and then the next level goes when we choose to comment on that story, and the quality of the comments that reaches more often than not what I think Ford refers as validation, not just being polite. Hey, good job, nice 6 or whatever. You go in the meat and bones of the story and say, this is what I like. This is, I don't get it. This, I don't get it. What you were trying to say. All of that, at least for me, is always valuable feedback. And all these create the environment we are talking about that has an
that's the
effect
sense of
in all of us.
community.
Yes,
it's a community thing.
And out of that, our idea of the 6 Sentences Cafe and Bistros came to life, because we were seeing that environment manifesting inside the comment section. And then the idea came what it would be like to create, as you said, the virtual person inside the virtual space of internet and gather around.
Yeah, that community too is a certain critical mass. I found back with the TTOT, with 10 Things to Thankful, which is a blog hop I got into years ago and done way years ago. And they got up to a critical mass, and the thing that marked, or what I could see, was was that threshold was what we refer to as thread hopping. In other words, going into somebody else's comment to conventionally, it's you say to Liz, hey, whatever. Have somebody come in on that and say, yeah, you're wrong. You're full of shit. That to me was with the TTOT, that threshold to a virtual community, because you were no longer, conventional would be you read it, you write it, you comment on it, you comment on others. That's a good thing.
No.
Then when you interrupt other people's conversation and bring totally off-topic stuff, that's the community thing, because that's what you would do in the real world, real world. And I don't use asterisks all the time. Thank you for that, by the way.
That was funny. That was good. So Nick, you made that comment, but when I went there and read Anonymous, sorry, Clark, but I just knew. I knew that was you.
Yeah, I mean, it's 150%.
And yeah.
Not
and you should be flattered about that. You should be flattered because it's like
my early parentheses Jones that I used to really have trouble with, and I still do. But every day it's. I have a problem with parentheses. Hi, Clark.
You're the asterisk.
I've got that a little bit under control.
You're the asterisk.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, the asterisk.
And
then your comment is identifiable no matter where it appears, and that's a resemblance to the voice or the playing of a guitar player. That when you hear the first notes, oh yeah, that's Jeff Beck. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't need. So that's a huge compliment in essence.
Have we talked about that yet? The most identifiable guitar player in the universe. I think we might have mentioned before.
No, we haven't.
I've got one in mind, and so most identifiable. So you can. I will maintain you can identify this person on the basis of a single note. Do I want to save it, or do I just want to stand up for it? I'll stand up for it.
I was thinking we could do a blind test to test that, but we cannot. Then I remember. Yes, we would be copyrighted. But
I'll vote.
Let's throw the names. What you were thinking?
Carlos Santana.
I knew you were going to say that.
Single note. I mean, other people are better and lots of other superlatives.
Tone of his note. It's that
everything. Yeah, but it's articulation. It's everything.
Yeah,
you can. And it's like, for example, Joe Cocker's voice. You can mix it with someone else's. When you hear Joe Cocker, it's Joe Cocker. It's not. Oh, is it Joe Cocker or is it? I don't know.
Really. So
yes,
track as we.
Dennis, okay.
I was just going to say, before we get going, movies. Did we have movies this week? The recommendations. I almost forgot.
Yes, we have. Name your movie.
Which means we're
wrapping
things up. Huh?
And Tom, you owe us a movie from last week.
Oh.
Totally does.
Sorry, dude. You owe us a movie from last week.
All right, I'm gonna go with mine. Right. Give me time on this because I'm not.
I have it. Are we waiting for Tom?
Tom will write the comment and I will bring it up. Let's have yours, Denise.
Okay. Coincidentally, because I remembered, oh my gosh, we have that thing at the end. And the one movie that popped into my head, don't ask me why, was Stranger Than Fiction, which one of us at some point in past years, I'm sure, has talked about. But Stranger Than Fiction came out in 2006. Will Ferrell, who I'm not typically a fan of Will Ferrell, Maggie Gyllenhaal, Emma Thompson. Anyway,
I think I missed that.
I enjoyed that movie. That was one of those picks, a video pick, just like, that sounds interesting. So that's my suggestion. It's my pick.
I'll put that down for Denise.
Yep.
Okay.
My computer isn't giving me enough speed to do a link, which I kind of like the IMDb link. Let me try.
Now it's I don't know. Maybe we should.
Do you have?
We can do it after the stream because
Okay,
now
then
you're.
And what's yours, Nick?
I don't know. I will tell you a story instead of
the name of the movie.
It's a movie. It's a movie. Yes.
Okay.
Because it's a. Do you know how Tarantino casted Bruce Willis for Pulp Fiction?
I don't know.
Okay, so the movie will be Pulp Fiction, obviously. So when he had the script of the movie with the studio with Miramax, I think they were casting. He had John Travolta for Vincent, Samuel Jackson for Jules, and he was trying to cast Butch, who eventually finally was Bruce Willis. The thing is, he tried a couple of actors, and they all, what he said, everyone wanted to play Vincent. They didn't want to play Butch. So finally, from an acquaintance to an acquaintance, the manuscript went to Bruce Willis. And lo and behold, Bruce Willis calls him over at his place and says, "That's great, but I want the Vincent role." And Quentin says, imagine Bruce Willis at the time was maybe the biggest movie star. He had every high-grossing movies with.
Die Hard.
Yeah, he was a big name. He wasn't. Maybe the biggest at the time. And he says, I have given the title. You know Tarantino, how he speaks. I have given to John Travolta the story. I don't want to screw up John. He's a stand-up guy. But he says, and then Quentin went and he took a leap of faith. And he said, can you do me a favor? Now that we have forgotten about Vincent, and then Bruce Willis asked for Jules. He says, I know he's a black guy, but I can see myself in it. And then he had to say to the biggest star of the time, Quentin, for the second time, no. But can you do me a favor and please read the script, forgetting that you're playing Jules or Vincent, and see Butch as a character, and whatever you decide. And next day he calls him up again, and he says, in true style, he says, "Look, Quentin, the shortest sentence in the Bible is Jesus wept. The shortest sentence in Hollywood is I mean." And then the rest is history.
Yeah.
So Michael has a movie, Parasite. That's the one that took the Oscar for foreign movie some 2 or 3 years ago. It's I think a Korean movie or yes, Parasite. Yes.
I'll have to look that up.
A hell of a movie. Yeah, it took the Oscar for foreign movies when it was.
Dark Comedy, South Carolina.
Tom's. Let's see Tom's
Where
movie.
we at?
Mine is an oldest one, Robin Hood. I think Taron Egerton.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Oh yeah, that was fairly recent version of that whole Robert Taron. Who was the mentor? Was that Jamie Foxx in that time, or?
But he says it's an oldest one, so I would like to watch. Frank.
Old school, Frank.
Peter
Old
Sellers
school
Pink
on that.
Panther movie.
Oh, right.
Yep, Frank. And also, there is a new Pinocchio out at Netflix, I think, by Guillermo del Toro, and I definitely want to watch that before I know it will be perfect. It's a stop animation movie, but Guillermo del Toro is a fantastic director.
Yeah, he's
If
done
you
some good.
if you've
good
seen
films.
the Labyrinth Pan, the Pan of Labyrinth of Pan. So
All right, so who?
that's
who
our
are we-
movies. Clark, we haven't
Yeah,
heard
I
yours.
think I'll go with. Wait a minute, I had it right here. Oh, Training Day.
What is it?
Training
Vin-
Day. Oh,
Denzel.
Denzel Washington
Okay,
and
intense.
Ethan
Yep,
Hawke.
I've
And
seen
Ethan
it.
Hawke.
Yep,
Ethan Hawke. Oh,
Kind
yeah.
of
that was good.
Right.
Yeah,
ties to last week's one, but very, very good movie. Very good movie.
Yeah.
yeah, it was a
Yeah.
good one. Good.
You have some time to.
I don't know if I have seen a bad movie by Denzel Washington yet.
Really, huh? That's crazy. I
Have you
agree.
seen? Have you
Yeah.
seen one?
He did that. What was the name of that time travel thing he did in New
Oh,
Orleans?
right, and with the one, yeah.
Great line from a guy who was, I don't know his name, but he was in Slacker. You can tie all this together. He was a bit part on it in the laboratory, and they were running up the power to send him back in time, and everything's getting big and it's not quite doing it. And the guy
Oh, I can
more,
almost
more
see it.
cowbell, more cowbell. Great line, great line.
I can almost see it. That was a good film. Seen that several times.
So, now,
Yeah.
Denzel, for example, if
Yeah.
you listen to his voice, not see him, listen to his voice acting. Of course, other actors. He's as unique. You is like Samuel Jackson, or you know it's him. You're not going to mix him with maybe it's Frank or
Yeah.
Nick or Clark.
Very- very
It's that
distinctive.
unique quality. But in guitar, it's more difficult because we are judging on listening only to the voice, not looking at the player. So you have to judge from the nose, the articulation, the equipment. It can be replicated, but still you have the same equipment, the same pedals, the same guitar, the same everything, the same notes. You have the tabs.
Yeah.
Still, the magic is in the notes.
Yeah. And one last thing before we leave that, YouTube user, next week have a movie recommendation prepared.
Yep. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes. Get ready.
Not a requirement, but we haven't run out of movies yet. I'm finding a terrible time trying to find movies that I used to like, and that's just attributed to a certain something.
I was like Denise this week. I forgot about it, and when Pulp Fiction saved me because I remembered that interview with Quentin. So I said, okay, because I have no movie in my mind. I have a lot of movies, but I would like to have something that really stands out. So,
All right. So,
outro, Clark.
Who leads? Who leads with the outro?
Nick?
You, Clark.
I do.
Yeah. It's
See you
always
next
the
week.
same. Me, thank you for a fantastic evening again. Thank you for all of you who are here with us and spending your evening or night with us. It's really appreciated. And for all of you who will be watching this episode on replay, see you next week. Thank you very much.
Yes, and I want to thank everyone, Tom, Ford, Frank, especially. It's kind of nice, like we hang out at the 6, we hang out here, and to anyone listening, watching, we have a comment box at Facebook and YouTube.
Yes.
Definitely join in, man. More the merrier.
Let's discuss.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Let's discuss.
Absolutely. So next Sunday, everyone, 2:30 Eastern Standard Time. We will be live again, and we look forward to seeing everyone. And that's it. So have a good week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.